It's the worst presidential address he's ever heard in his life. He said it was the number one least effective, most painful speech he's ever heard. He said the first half, in his view, was written by AI, and the second was written by somebody who did policy back in 1975, who must be on the Biden staff, but he was completely underwhelmed. What did you think?
Ana Kasparian and Megyn Kelly shockingly agree about something together in this clip from the Megyn Kelly Show, as Ana Kasparian, after leaving the left, now is making appearances on right-wing shows like Megyn Kelly's. And it's weird to see these two in agreement after both Megyn Kelly and Ana Kasparian have said some really bad stuff about each other in the past. But now, since politics are changing and less about left versus right and rather Americans versus the elites, moments like this, I think, are actually moving the country in a positive direction. So let's check it out.
Start with Biden, because he's in the news after his big farewell address last night. Kevin, John Podhoretz, who hosts a podcast and Commentary Magazine and runs Commentary Magazine, and used to be a presidential speechwriter for Reagan and beyond, said it's the worst presidential address he's ever heard in his life. He said it was the number one least effective, most painful speech he's ever heard. He said the first half, in his view, was written by AI, and the second was written by somebody who did policy back in 1975, who must be on the Biden staff, but he was completely underwhelmed. What did you think?
I agree 100%. It seemed like it was like mailed in by not only Biden, but the speechwriting staff of the White House. Like, they're probably thinking, okay, we've got another week to go. Let's just see what we can do, and just let's give this to the boss and let it rip, and then move on. Right, find our next job. It was also a bit of like a microcosm of the Biden presidency in that sense, in that I'm sure it was well intentioned, right, and they came in with like lofty goals for it, but it quickly descended into incoherence. And then that was matched with a lot of the hypocrisy, like just the idea of, delivering this message about how America is being controlled by this wealthy oligarchy 1 week after you just hung a medal around George Soros's neck in the White House.
It's a bit rich.
Like that.
So
I think as a staffer, one of the things I said to myself immediately upon hearing that was like, who thought that was a good idea to push that, given the optics and the pageantry of the last week? And
who didn't see the vulnerability?
Right. Nobody thought that would not go over well, and that we'd be called on for the hypocrisy of it. And then
Stand by. Let me play that so the audience can hear it. Hold your second thought. Here it is, SOT 9.
I have no doubt that America's in a position to continue to succeed. That's why my farewell address tonight, I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern. This is a dangerous that's a dangerous concentration of power in the hands of a very few ultra-wealthy people. And the dangerous consequences if their abuse of power is left unchecked. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead.
Keep going, Kevin.
So, here we are where, that they just spent an election where they tried to frame everything as this pivot point for American democracy. And every single public poll shows that people were more worried about the Biden administration and its threat to democracy. So, it not only I think it's, there's a false sense of alarmism that they're trying to continue to push, but it's just the hypocrisy of the message and how that message continues to land very poorly with the public. It continues to boggle my mind why they continue to push that. And then I think the last thing is...
Oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of empty platitudes. Like, Joe Biden's sort of go-to move is to always say, and there's nothing America can't achieve if we put our minds to it. 5 minutes after he just listed all of the things that are sort of dangerous and destructive about what the other half of the country believes and has essentially taken to an electorate and won on. So I just... and the last thing I'd say is it was 15 minutes long. Most of the people that I talked to about it, when I asked their reaction, said they didn't even get their way through it. Now that's...
Folks, let me know in the comments how you feel about this, but personally, I always get annoyed when I listen to the woke left talk about billionaires taking over and always trying to project that all on the right, when the left has more billionaires than anyone else. As this guy just said, Joe Biden just put like the largest civilian reward you can give to George Soros, a guy who illegally owns more radio stations and news outlets than he ought to be legally allowed to, and was fast-tracked during this last election. It's an absolute joke. They just project all the things that they actually are. But leave a like if you're enjoying the video. It really helps out the channel. I appreciate it. Let's get back in.
It's a 15-minute speech that people couldn't sit through. And it harkens back to the State of the Union speech, which the Biden administration had swore was going to be this, big energizing jolt to the American electorate to reframe the 2020 race. And, all of the reviews of that State of the Union, they all said that was going to be a game changer for their campaign. 48 hours later from the State of the Union, just like this, instantly forgettable. It's almost like I always call it like cotton candy messaging. Like it melts on contact. No one's even going to remember it 48 hours from now.
Well, I mean, your hips remember the cotton candy, so there's that distinction. Here's one of the things, the galling things. Kevin mentions, George Soros. There's a very long list of billionaires on both sides that make donations, but it's 2-1 Dems to Republicans. It's the Democrats definitely outweigh the Republicans when it comes to billionaire donors. It's to the point where you may remember this moment too. During the Kamala Harris campaign, she went on with Stephen Colbert, and they had this moment.
There are quite a few billionaires who support you. You are from Northern California, after all, where they grow them in fields out there. Who's your favorite billionaire? Because we all have a favorite billionaire. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Oprah. I'm sorry. I claimed Oprah. You can't take her now.
So, we all know this. So why is Biden doing it? It's just if you're a tech billionaire and suddenly you're part of this oligopoly that's trying to rule America with a tech iron fist?
Honestly, I agree with the message that Biden was trying to put out there in this speech, which I also agree. I had a difficult time getting through it. It was kind of boring for me. So I got through maybe 25%. Tried to watch it multiple times, could not get through it. But in regard to the message that he's trying to put out there in regard to, corporate rule in America and money in politics in America, that is an accurate message. But you both make a great point about how money in politics has corrupted both political parties. And for the Democrats to pretend as though they're totally innocent of this is ridiculous to me, especially considering what we experienced in the last election cycle. Kamala Harris raised far more money than the Trump campaign did. And in fact, she raised far more dark money than the Trump campaign did. And then she moved forward in essentially squandering all of that money. And I think this past election really shows the kind of grift that exists within our election cycles, because that money gets spent with all these consultants and all these various, PR groups, and the amount of money they charge for their services, which have proven to be a failure in this past election cycle for the Democrats, is absolutely outrageous. And so I feel like our elections have become more about, a business.
Years ago, folks, you would never see Megyn Kelly and Ana Kasparian on the same show. Basically, everyone agreeing on the same point in that, hey, we're all getting screwed. Like you would not have seen that, I think, in 2018, 2016, any time before that. But with the new political diagram that Donald Trump has basically realigned, in that this is not a left or right issue. This is an American versus them issue. It's them versus us, not really left versus right, and has won on that message. And from here on out, I think that's going to be the prevailing narrative, that now you can see, Ana Kasparian and Megyn Kelly coming together, like don't agree on everything, but now we all see that we're getting screwed at the same time. And the idea that Democrats are, devoid of any corruption, any political dark money, all this. No, they are the worst ones of all, literally the worst ones. And they project everything. So when Joe Biden talks about there's an oligarchy forming and stuff like that, yeah, he's right, because he's part of the oligarchy. But that's what they do. They just gaslight the audience into thinking it's the other side. And now those tactics are no longer working. But yeah, it's interesting to see these two agreeing, but I think it's a good thing. But let me know in the comments, how do you feel about it? Do you think this is a good direction for everybody in the country? And what did you think about what Megyn Kelly and Ana Kasparian both had to say about corrupt billionaire money in our elections? Thanks for watching. Take care, like and subscribe, and I'll see you folks on the next one.